You are listening to This is Oklahoma, hosted by Mike Hearn, telling stories of Oklahomans and those that have made it their home.
Before we get into today's episode, I want to tell you a little bit about our current sponsors, the Oklahoma Hall of Fame. As you well know, if you've been following This is Oklahoma, they've been a huge part of this podcast. So this podcast is presented by the Oklahoma Hall of Fame, telling an Oklahoma story through its people since 1927. For more information on the Hall of Fame, go to www.oklahomahof.com and follow them on Instagram for daily updates at oklahomahof. Also, for the podcast, a new sponsor this year that's just come on board and super excited to announce RCB Bank. Since 1936, RCB Bank has offered progressive products and a friendly service. Come in today to find out more about their loan promotion on new, used, refinance cars, boats, campers, and ATVs. Visit RCB Bank to learn more. RCB Bank, that's my bank. With approved credit, restrictions apply. Now, let's get into today's episode. What's up, guys? Welcome back to another episode of This is Oklahoma. Mike Hearn here, your host, back with another episode down at the Bedford studio today with, and I'm going to say who I'm with, as Eric announced us together in a group text, and that was Sara Cunningham, the Wonderful, I think is what it was, right?
He's such a card.
I know. Eric, got to give him a shout out, obviously, for all the hard work he's doing, and obviously you've done great things with him and his family,
great family.
and that's how you guys met. But appreciate you coming down. Thanks for coming on the podcast. You've been, I think, in demand on some, big stuff. Like New York Times article just came out, and all the cool stuff that you're doing. But before we get into that, tell me a little bit about like born and raised and just kind of general upbringing and how you were in Oklahoma.
Sure. I was born and raised in Oklahoma City. I grew up in the Britton Village area, and I met my husband there. We were childhood friends first, and then we just stayed friends for a while, and then he saw me in a two-piece bathing suit, and then, we took it a little further.
Yeah.
And he got his own place, and I got pregnant.
Yeah.
And so we certainly weren't in love, but we liked each other, right? So, But we've been together over 30 years now, and we have two wonderful children, still living in Oklahoma City, and I love living in Oklahoma City. Now when the ice storm comes, I think, Rex, why don't we go somewhere sunny? But,
right.
But other than that, I love inner city living, and my family's here. My children are here, so it's great.
That's great that you guys are still together, because that's not very. It's very common, isn't it, for that to happen? You get pregnant before you get married, and then it just dissolves, right? And it's sad. That's great that you guys are still together.
He's a great guy. He's a saint.
That's
he really
awesome.
is.
So obviously the reason we're here today is to talk about, and I'm going to say it like you guys say it, not like I should say it, free mom hugs, not free mum hugs, because that's how I say it.
We do have a group that says it like that, and they spell it like that.
That is brilliant.
Yeah.
But obviously you're here to talk about that and the impact that you've made in that, and all the tough decisions that you went through to get to where you're at now, right? This is not easy to do, and with Parker and everything, and just the whole thing, right? It's amazing the impact that you've had and the turnaround, and just we only get one go at this, right, for the most part, as much as we know of, and there's many people in the world that have an impact, and it's cool to actually interview someone who has done some really cool things, and I don't think yet I've interviewed someone who has impacted so many people in this area. So I'm pumped for this. This is exciting. So tell us, I guess, when it all started, when the whole free, the free mum hugs comes around, and just kind of like, it starts with Parker, right? And the relationship that you have with your son, and just also, the tough questions from your upbringing that you're battling.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah. Well, Rex and I, we didn't go to church regularly when we were young. We just rode the church bus when it was in the neighborhood, and it would be free ice cream or roller skating, and we'd hang out, and it was a lot of fun. And then as we, started our family, we bought our home, and it was in an area that had a church that we could walk to, and we just started going there. Actually, Travis, our oldest son, went to like vacation Bible school there, and we just got plugged in, and we were there every time the church doors were open. And we raised our children there for the better part of 20 years. And when Parker the short of it is when he turned 21, he met someone, and he needed me to be okay about it, and I didn't take the news well at all. You see, we had raised our children in the church where we absorbed this idea that homosexuality is wrong, and he really tried to have that conversation his entire life, but I didn't allow it. I didn't give him the vocabulary or the space, and in doing that, I hurt him really bad, and I made life in our home very difficult. And it's something that I regret even today. It's very painful to remember. But luckily, we were able to work through that, and it was only by, I say it all the time, but when he came out of his closet, I went into mine. And I had to reconcile my faith, because I thought, how can a loving God that I'd grown to just give everything to, even my family, and then suddenly it was implied that he would reject my son and condemn him to hell. So I was frozen in that fear and in that ignorance. And so I've been very transparent about it, because as the journey took us from the church to the Pride Parade, I began to, get educated on things like the history of human sexuality, on science and evidence, and most importantly to me is hearing testimonies from gay Christians. And that really opened my eyes to something that I feel like we had been duped in our walk of faith, and with the very best of intentions. And so then I started meeting other moms just like me, whereas previously I thought I was the only mom in Oklahoma with a gay kid, really. And I certainly didn't talk about what I was experiencing. So it took us from the church to the Pride Parade without losing my faith or my son. And then I got plugged into the community. And that was in 2014. We stood at the Pride Festival with Parker and his friends. And then in 2015, I made a homemade button that said "Free Mom Hugs." And I stood at the festival, and with anyone who made eye contact with me, I would say, "Can I offer you a free mom hug?" And from that experience, I started the nonprofit. And I'm not the first mom to offer hugs. But I think the reason why it's been so successful is that number one, it gave people a platform because people want to do something. And number two, in being transparent about it, other mothers like me and families like ours can say, this is us, this is what we went through too, and it allows that space to really search the matter out. And I'm very happy with that.
I know, I haven't been through that myself, but I can't imagine, how difficult it was, right, to spend so much of your time with the church and your faith, and this is everything, right? And then you go through that period, right, of battling with acceptance and just everything. That must have been so tough, but through that you've learned so many lessons, and now what you've done now is being able to help families get through that, because we are in Oklahoma, we are heavily Christian based, regardless of what denomination you are. It is a real thing, and it is very tough to I think, probably families or mothers or parents felt embarrassed maybe, and it's never wanted to talk about it, or they, and you always think about, what do my friends think of me? And then you dive down that spiral, and it's like you said, you went into your closet. It's a tough thing to deal with, right? So you go to the Pride Festival and you see smiling faces and people, right? Real people. It doesn't matter who they are, what they do, just real people. And the simple thing of giving someone a hug, right? But it seems so simple, but it's something for them that was, it probably gave you as much joy as it did them.
Absolutely,
right?
Yes. Yeah.
So you take all this, and then it starts with the book. Is that right? You go into the book first?
Right. I wrote the book, How We Sleep at Night, A Mother's Memoir. And at that time, when it was, I self-published the book. And Free Mom Hugs wasn't even on the radar, because the last chapter was inspired by standing at the Pride Festival with Parker and his friends. And the last chapter was at that moment, and it was a pivotal moment in my life, in my faith. And what you said earlier, because you were in my head with everything that you said, but there's a sense of belonging when you're in a faith community, the fellowship of believers and the participating in the faith. And when that's gone, but I know the difference now between the chosen family of the community. And when I say community going forward, is what I mean is by the LGBTQIA plus community. And I totally respect the acronym. But for, the recording's sake, the community, and I met a beautiful spirit-filled community, and they also want a sense of belonging with community.
Yeah.
And when the church, non-affirming church, is taken away, there's great devastation there. Not only are they, separated from their church homes, but from their families, and it's just devastating.
Yeah. So you felt like within your skills, you thought, I can write a book. I'm going to go down the book route.
Oh my gosh!
And like, how was that experience of putting it on paper and then releasing it? Right. This is a huge deal to put a book out there with your name on it that says, "This is my experience."
Well, I will tell you, Mike. I'd never in a million years would think that I would ever publish a book. I just started writing about it because I was meeting wonderful people and having these pivotal moments in I thought, God, this is profound to me. So I started writing about it thinking, well, I'll just, and it's a self-published book. I have a 10th grade education, so you realize how limited your vocabulary is. It wasn't easy in the sense of, being, I don't even know the word, but like just writing well.
Yeah.
But it was easy in the sense that I knew it. I knew the stories. I knew the feelings, the emotions. Those moments is what I just wrote it like I talk to you today. And it resonates. It has resonated really well. It's done beyond anything I could have ever imagined. And in fact, I've been signed by a literary agent now, and we're working on a second book.
Yeah.
And I'm thinking about the working title being Beyond the Hug or something like that.
Yeah. Just a continuation of the first one, right? And just keeping telling those stories.
It'll pick up.
Yeah, I'm the same. I'm terrible. Like my aunt is an English teacher, and she got me through my exams. Like I'm terrible, and I write the same way I write as I speak. And everyone's like, "Well, it should be like a period here," and I'm just like, just read it, like as if I'm talking to you. Yeah, you get really
self-conscious
right
when you're writing it. But I had a couple of friends who I have a novelist friend. She's written I don't know how many novels now, but they, heard about what I was doing, and so they offered to, edit the book and just help me write it, and they were a huge help.
Yeah. So the book goes out, people start buying, and then the word spreads. What are you kind of doing at that time? Are you kind of working? Yeah, and just kind of how what is that period before, where we're at now, right? Where you have a legit 501c3 and it is a thing now, right? Because before it was just, hey, this is me and this is who I am. Yeah.
So I wrote the book. It came out, and I just started, getting plugged into the community, attending PFLAG, local PFLAG groups. I served on the Oklahoma City Pride Board 2 years. It was a wonderful experience both times, and I just fell in love with the community. And then I started advocating because I was accountable to what I was learning. Yeah. For example, my straight son has more rights than my gay son. We're fighting more anti-gay bills than we ever have in history. And the majority of them are pointed to the transgender community, which I have a huge heart for. Though my son is not transgender, but I went to a meeting that I thought was for high school families like ours, and it turned into be for the adult transgender community. And up until that time, I'd never been in the same room with a transgender person that I know of. So I stayed and I heard their stories, and after that meeting, I went out to my Jeep and I sat there and I just cried hot tears because I heard their stories, and I thought, these are beautiful, misunderstood people. And so I really started advocating because for example, conversion therapy is still legal, sought out, and paid for not far from here. And it's something that has done great harm and devastation to the community and to their families. And so I'm accountable to these things. And that's why I fight like my hair is on fire. There's a sense of urgency because I've seen the repercussions of it. I know the power of fear and ignorance, and I know the power of love and education. So I started advocating there, and soon same-sex couples started asking if I would officiate their weddings because I've made it very clear I am a woman of faith. If anything, I experience God more than I ever thought possible, the power of the Holy Spirit, which I believe in, and just the essence of humanity and partnering together as people. So same-sex couples ask if I would officiate their weddings, and then I started hearing stories of how parents were not acknowledging the relationship, refusing to come to the wedding, and that's when I made this social media post that went viral with my hand in the air. It's a photograph of me with my hand in the air saying, if your biological mom won't come to your same-sex wedding, then you call me, I'll be there, I'll be your biggest fan, I'll even bring the bubbles. And that post went viral.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And we're probably without expecting it, right?
Oh,
You're just like
certainly not.
this is who I am, but I'm willing to do this because you need this. And as well as, like there's a serious statistic around the community that is, suicide, right? Like
yes.
they just, because they're not being accepted.
No.
And like that's a significant, I think, was it 20%? It's a big number, right?
Well, if one affirming person lowers the suicide, at-risk behavior, self-harm by 40%, and it's even more for the transgender community. So you can imagine, what this community is going through. And I mean, shame is one thing in and of itself. I believe that shame is the ultimate sin. When we shame ourselves, when we shame each other, that's what kills, steals, and destroys the spirit. And also, could you imagine not being accepted, or even if your parents disapprove of something, no matter what it is, it's devastating, but especially on your wedding day,
right?
Or when you have children and your parents won't even come and see them because you're gay. Yeah. It's devastating.
Yeah. So when that post goes viral, where is that first wedding that you go to? So had you been you were ordained before that, right? So you did that, and then
I had been officiating for a while. The first same-sex wedding that I performed was for an older couple. My husband and I met on vacation. We just happened to be in the same hotel together, and it's kind of a long story, but we met at the hotel. And we ended up having dinner together. And they're a beautiful couple. They've been together 28 years. And when the Marriage Equality Act passed, Jill, my dear friend, says, well, I need to make an honest woman out of Denise, so let's get married. And they asked if I would officiate their wedding. So I did. And it was in Natchez, Mississippi. It's the first same-sex wedding at the community center there. Okay. And they made the front page news. And they're still together. They're wonderful, beautiful couple. And I'm just so glad that I had that experience with them first.
Those are the stories that you're pulling from current stories, right, of young adults and kids coming out and talking about it. But then you have those stories who they've gone through so much because it wasn't definitely not accepted back then, right? 20, 30, 40 years ago. I can't imagine what that was like, right? There was no one like you, or no social media, or, it was tough to find, a community. Because you might be in a small town in the South, and you could well be possibly the only couple. And that's a huge secret to try and keep, right? That's, can't imagine how that was.
It is, and they had acquired, a house together. And getting older, if one had, taken ill or, had a heart attack or something, even on those situations, you want to be able to take care of each other. But to a good story like that, as you were saying, I have horror stories in my mind. Right. There's a local church here, a fully affirming church, and we can talk about that in a minute. But I remember meeting a young person who had attended this place of worship and was just desperate to be in the fellowship there and a sense of belonging. But he admitted to having same-sex feelings. And so the elders of that church made this young man go into the basement of the church with the elders, and they laid hands on him, and they prayed over him. Mike, and they wouldn't let him leave until he barked like a dog and threw up in a bucket. These are his words.
It's crazy.
So
absolutely
they spent hours praying over this precious young man. He was an adult by then. He was an adult by then. But they wouldn't let him leave. Well, finally, he did bark like a dog and throw up in a bucket. And they let him leave, and he sat in his car, and he touched his chest and said, I'm still gay.
Right.
And he had just the devastation that does to a human being, and they carry it with them their whole lives. Right. And it's
because they think
traumatic.
It's a place to be safe, right? And
they
then
think
that
they're doing the right thing.
And that happens, and you're like, you're right. It's totally devastating.
Or the mother that that's planning a funeral for their even young high schooler who weren't accepted or bullied at school for being gay, and they commit suicide. And now the family's going through that. It's devastating.
Yeah. So being in the community, growing up here, right? Living in a village in Oklahoma City, and I mean, people back home. I explained that there's as many pubs as there are on every corner. There are churches on corners in Oklahoma, right? That's kind of the analogy that I used to explain to my friends back home. But there are some that will accept, and there are some, like you just mentioned, that are just way off the scale, that are just like so stuck in time and their ways, and this is how it's always been. This is why aren't we changing? Generally, I guess, how has that experience been, and has it improved? As you've been doing this and the mission that you're on?
Yes, it has improved. But first of all, the difference, and I had to learn this too, Mike, is the difference between an affirming church and a non-affirming church. The non-affirming church will not celebrate the spiritual gifts of the community and not honor same-sex marriage as holy. Whereas the affirming church will celebrate the spiritual gifts. It'll allow my transgender friend to work in the nursery if they feel called to do that, and they honor same-sex marriage. That's how you tell the difference.
Gotcha.
The problem that we have, I feel, in Oklahoma, and I'm sure in every state, is that we have these wonderful mega churches who are doing amazing things, and this huge youth group who are doing amazing things too. But when that young person comes out and confides with their youth pastor, for example, they're devastated, and they don't understand why they can no longer serve in the youth, or their testimony is not considered relevant because they've in the non-affirming church has condoned or contributed to their own sin or given into the lust of the flesh and so on. And it is devastating. And this should be a drinking game, the word devastating. And the fully affirming church. But the fully affirming church has a lot of work ahead of it, because so many have just been alienated beyond return.
But it's seeing that work as an opportunity rather than we don't want to deal with it. What if something goes wrong? We're on the hook for it. Rather than let's help. We're help. We've got people here that can do this. And if they don't, I'm sure they reach out to you or a similar chapter, right? That helps with this. So that post goes viral. You start associating weddings. And I guess it's off to the races then, right? Is the charity like born then, or was that already previously done?
It was. We were just a local chapter, just some moms and dads and allies. We just would get together and attend events, be available to just be a loving presence in the life of the community, and we would plan some events of our own. One thing that I'm most proud of in Oklahoma, as the Oklahoma chapter, we started the Transgender Valentine's Banquet. It's a free banquet to the community, and it's just to make good memories. And we have a meal. Sometimes it's a dance floor, and we've had 6 now. And we've made history with that, with the Transgender Valentine's Banquet. I'm most proud of that. And but that started as an Oklahoma chapter. We were just seeing a need and doing that. And then that post went viral, and it was like the cat was out of the bag. Like we were already a nonprofit in 2016. We umbrellaed under a fully affirming church. And they saw what we were doing, and people started donating monies for the Transgender Valentine's Banquet. And they said, we'll just umbrella under here, and you don't have to do all the paperwork, but we'll work together. And that was great. But once that post went viral, we were getting like 50 emails an hour, people all over the world wanting to show up for stand-in weddings. And the stand-in weddings started, like I started officiating, but then when their parents won't show up, couples started asking if I would go as a stand-in parent. Yes, I've done a lot.
But you also can't be everywhere.
But it pales on comparison. There's really not that thankfully. It's just not a big part of what I do. It's a small fraction of what we do. So, cat was out of the bag, on fire, and people just started wanting to make chapters everywhere, so we didn't even have a foundation. It was like a PTA group trying to run a national board with chapters in every state. So, we hustled, we scattered, and we did a lot of great things, and we made a lot of mistakes, and we put people in places that just weren't in their wheelhouse. and paid the price. But now we have a wonderful national board, and we have chapters in every state, and we're building the infrastructure with guardrails to keep our chapters safe and the nonprofit safe. And I just couldn't be more happy with the people that share the same heart and the mission for Free Mom Hugs.
It's amazing when you look back and you're like, I was making pins or making buttons, right? And now it is what it is.
Yeah.
And you have world impact, not just your town or, even just in, Oklahoma City or the surrounding areas, the metro, like it's worldwide. And it's amazing.
It is. I just don't even believe it myself. But I have to remember too, Mike, that it's the fruit of it. It's good. It's helping people. It's serving people. It's, moms get it. Yeah. Sometimes it takes them a while.
Right.
But the fruit of Free Mom Hugs is healing. It's lasting. It's empowering. And it's a platform for people to do something. And what I would have done as a mother then, to see someone like me or to hear someone like me at my place of worship, or, to have someone go and speak to my son's school and encourage him. So that's the good news. And I believe that's why it resonates so well. And that's why it's been as successful as it is. And it will continue to until every household is affirming.
So everything's going crazy.
Yeah.
You're getting phone calls and emails from all around. You're trying to restructure, and it's just, like you said, cat's out the bag and on fire. When does the UPS thing happen, and how does that happen?
Okay.
Because that was the first thing that I saw, and I think probably a lot of people might have seen as well. And if you haven't seen it, I'll link it in the description because it's fantastic.
Yeah. The UPS deal came about when the cat was out of the bag. This happened with Jamie Lee Curtis, and we can talk about that later. But the place was on fire in a very best way, and then COVID happened. Like, I felt like we were going into warp speed. What was it? 2020, 2021. It's a blur now. But I thought we were just that was our year. The movie was going to come out. The documentary was going to come out. We had chapters established in every state. We were on fire. And then COVID, I felt like it just pulled the plug. So we really had to figure out, okay, this is based on a physical touch. What are we going to do? But fortunately, we had our social media following. Yeah. And so we were able to keep the momentum going and keep the community and the families connected that way. And so we thought, what can we do? And then one of our board members was preparing a care package for their son. Yeah. And we thought, it was an aha moment.
There it is, yeah.
So we started making care packages. And, being a small nonprofit, we depend on donations. And we really hadn't acquired any funding or any sponsors or anything. So...
well, because you're not thinking about it, because you didn't think COVID's going to happen. No. Nobody expected COVID to happen, right? Yeah.
So we started doing care packages as we could, and we started posting online, and people would nominate. Say if they heard of an individual who's alone or feeling, alienated, they would nominate that person, and then we would make the care package for them. Yeah. And so UPS found out about it, and my board, there was a few members on the board who knew what was going to happen. Yeah. I didn't know. Yeah. And they didn't tell me until, they didn't tell me. They
said you roll up the shuttered doors and everyone's like,
yes, yeah. Yes. They said we were in a competition with some other nonprofits just to, be nominated for something. I didn't really know. I was just happy to go along with it. And so they... we're going to be at my house, and they said, well, we're going to be at your house like at 7:30 the next morning. I thought, okay.
Great, thanks.
At 6:45, a huge moving van comes in front of my house, and they start unloading porta potties and tables, because we're in the height of COVID, or the onset. Yeah. And so they have a COVID tester there who checks everybody's temperature, coming and going, and tables for the crew, and there must have been probably 80 or 100 people in my front yard.
It's 6:45 in the morning.
Yeah. And I'm like trying to, put my eyebrows on. Yeah. And it's like, but I was shocked and amazed, but I thought, okay, I'm pretty gullible. I can be gullible, apparently. Yeah. Obviously. So anyway, we spent a couple of days together with this wonderful, film crew, and then, they say, well, we're going to pick you up tomorrow, and we're going to just go around the sites, and we want you to show us around 39th Street, because I love 39th Street.
Yeah.
And so we're driving around, and then suddenly they start going downtown. I thought, and Parker and I were in the car with two of the members of the crew. I said, what are we doing? Where are we going? Yeah. And I said, hey, where are we going? Like, can you tell me about it so I can at least be prepared of who I'm going to be meeting with? And they just were very vague about it. And then we get out of the car, we turn the corner, and there's our president of the nonprofit, our executive director, Katrina, who runs our social media and PR. It's like, what is going on? And then all the rest in the video. In fact, I'm not 100% sure, but I think it won the Webby Awards.
Yeah.
I don't know if you saw that, but it hasn't been announced. But people voted on it, and last I heard, it was like
crazy.
A very high possibility of winning the Webby Awards.
Yeah. Oh, it's mad, isn't it? Yeah.
They did a great job with it.
It's fantastic. It is
really
good.
They captured it, and they donated $10,000. And unbeknownst to me, they acquired all the things that we were putting, because we only had like maybe 100 that we could mail out as a nonprofit, but they acquired all the things that we were putting in there, and they bought it all
just
for 400 packages to be mailed out, and they paid for the deliveries.
Amazing.
I mean, it just blew my mind.
One of these significant moments in the journey of the story that keeps you on track, keeps you like, this is why we're doing this, right? This is just another reason why I'm doing this, because and it fuels you, doesn't it? You see this, and like people get it, they're on board. Giant company like UPS is like, sure, we'll help out for sure, and we'll do this.
It was great. It was a wonderful experience. I mean, we've had a lot of wonderful times just like that. Just people donating $5, for the banquet, or for care packages, and it's been great.
Yeah, tell me about this moment that for people that aren't. People that aren't watching this episode, we have a picture in front of us of you and Jamie Lee Curtis. Tell me about that moment. Like, how does that all happen?
Well, what happened is the post went viral, and I got a private message one day, and it said from Jamie Lee Curtis. It was a private message on social media, and it said something like, "Hi, this is Jamie Lee Curtis. I saw the post that went viral, and I'm very intrigued. Tell me what inspired that."
Yeah.
And I said, and she said, "Here's my number. Would you call me?" And I literally said, "Yeah, I'm going to pray I'm not getting catfished, and then I'll call you."
Yeah.
So, and I called her, and we had a wonderful visit, and then we had more visits, and then she found out about the book, and she read it, and she loved it, and she acquired the rights, and then she, the plan is, pre-COVID, was that she would direct and play me in a Lifetime movie.
Yeah.
And COVID just pushed everything back. We're still committed to the project, but it's timing, and if she directs it and plays me, she needs longer time.
Sure. So that's where that's where the movie comes from. Then is from this whole interaction.
And she came to Oklahoma City, and we spent some time together.
Yeah.
And she met my family, and we had a wonderful time, and we've been in contact ever since. And I've been to her home. Parker and I, we went to California and met with a screenwriter.
Yeah.
And it's been just a wonderful experience.
She's
she's a humanitarian in every degree. If you follow her on social media, what I love most is that she's always pointing to something. Whether it's, climate awareness or political, situation, or,
using the following that she has in her voice to really make a change.
To just really point to really good things.
That must have been so cool to just,
go what it's afforded me. I mean, like, what it's brought to, my family and the mission of Free Mom Hugs.
Yeah.
It just, I'm having trouble.
Yeah. Well, and then you get to moments like the New York Times article that just came out, right?
Yeah.
And just like going on talk shows or TV shows and just giving, being given this opportunity and a platform to tell your story.
Yeah.
Whereas 20, 30 years ago, you might not have had an opportunity at all. No one would have even answered the phone or replied to an email.
No, you're right. All of the messages that we've gotten, and I was just talking to our board and a chapter leader, I said, everything good that has come to Free Mom Hugs, I don't mean good that's really invested into it and empowered, has been, we haven't had to solicit for hardly anything. And in fact, well, I don't know if it's not public knowledge, but I mean, Jamie Lee Curtis made a donation so I could quit my job. I was working, at an architectural firm as a secretary and doing the nonprofit even when things went viral. And it was very difficult. It was, it wasn't fair to my employer. And so I was able to quit Free Mom Hugs. And this is like in February or January, right before COVID.
Yeah.
So I'd go off the payroll where I was and go on to Free Mom Hugs payroll. Yeah. And then COVID happened. So it's like, ooh. But we've had some sponsorships through Barefoot Wines. Mm-hmm. They picked us up last year, and they picked us up again this year. Mm-hmm. We've got a couple of deals going with Vera Bradley. And, I've been able to do presentations. We call them Free Mom Hugs 1.0 and Free Mom Hugs 2.0. And the 1.0 is just the story and the origin of stories. And then the 2.0 is more towards advocacy, allyship, what I've learned along the way. Sure. I'm not educated in that wheelhouse, but I found what I've learned along the way applies, just the same, or, to a degree. Yeah. And and we, get donations through that way rather than, I just say, if you make a donation to Free Mom Hugs. And, there's the things that I'm really excited about, like Loves. Yeah. Loves is a private-owned company, family-owned here in Oklahoma. They have a conservative reputation. Mm-hmm. And when they invited me to speak last year, I was thrilled because if Loves is having a conversation with Free Mom Hugs, then I knew we were doing something right.
We're breaking down the right barriers, and it's like I said, you get back to that acceptance, and just being able to having the opportunity to go speak to a company like that, and them saying, hang on, you have a great mission and a great story, and people in our employees can learn from this. We'd love for you to come speak.
They did. Yeah.
That's, is that something that you'd love to do more in the future as well, is go to, the big conferences or bigger, companies having you come in to speak and really getting the word out that way?
Yeah, it seems to be what's happening now. Yeah. The only thing that I kind of miss is like traveling, like everything's Zoom now, and I love the technology and of course being able to do that. But man, I miss going. I miss seeing, meeting people. I'm a very social person. I mean, I love meeting people. But a funny thing, if I could go back to Loves for a minute, I was thrilled to be able to share there. Mm-hmm. But after I shared last year, I heard from several of the employees, but one in particular, and I shared this with the New York Times, but it didn't make the cut, is that I heard from a person who had been employed at Loves for, I think, 5.5 years, they said, and they had been in the closet until that presentation. Yeah. And it took some time, but they came out at work, and at Love's travel store, they were out, and they were not out anywhere else in their life, not in their place of worship, not in their home, but at work they could be out, and that's when I knew. And I shared that with Loves, and now I'm going back. I'll be doing a 2.0 presentation. Yeah. And but they've made a nice donation to Free Mom Hugs, and that's how we sustain the mission.
Yeah. And so to that 2.0 point, then going forward, obviously everything that's gone to now, it's like riding the rocket ship, isn't it? It's like something keeps happening and we keep going and going. Mm-hmm. It's just pointing in the right direction now. So where are we going to now, and what is, I guess, the whole 2.0 kind of mission and part of it? Where is that going?
Right now, the 2.0. I think the vision is that talk about what I've learned as an ally and advocacy and what I've learned politically. Okay. And in fact, we're working with the Human Rights Campaign to equip our chapters to speak to issues that they're facing where they are. But we also are a nonprofit, so we can only send a certain amount of our time on that. We don't want to risk or jeopardize that, so we're very careful. Yeah. But we still can speak to issues that affect our families and the community that we serve. And but I'm most excited about that too, is working with the HRC. So, but I see our chapters being more like I might be the face of Free Mom Hugs now, but I'm very realistic and happy to know that I'm not going to be the last. Yeah. And I don't want to be the only face. I'm okay with it now. It's a lot of fun, and I can see a lot of good things happening, but I won't always be the face. We have some chapter leaders that, Mike, they're just making the world a safer place where they're at. They're learning. they're getting equipped to have conversations at the water cooler, at places of worship, and they're being invited. The media is going to them and inviting them.
Right.
And so
yeah,
I'm very happy with that.
It's just like how it kind of trickles down, isn't it?
The ripple effect.
It's that first person contact, right? Okay, they might see a video on social media or see the website or one of the viral posts, and then they like search for it, right? And then they go to their contact that's in their area. And through all the training and all the stories and just the way that you've built a network, that personal touch that they get is, like I said, it starts with you, but then it's from one of those chapter leaders or somebody in that chapter that resonates, that lives in the same community, that might go to the same church, like that. And it's real, like, I mean, boots on the ground analogy, right? Like, it is real impact. You know, it's not just, hey, here's a starter pack and an email pack and here it is, knock yourself out, this is what you should do. It's, let's have a conversation over coffee or wine or whatever and talk about it. And, you know, that's what makes the real impact, isn't it? It's like seeing that person in their place, wherever they are, if it's deep south or New York or wherever, you know, because I don't know what it's like to do that in New York, right? Or we don't know that.
We don't know the needs are there.
But that person is, and that's the special thing about it, and the
that's
network
the
that's come from it. Super exciting.
Well, there's a perfect example of that is in California. We have a very vibrant, active group in California. When COVID came, they started pride rides.
Yeah.
They would go and decorate their cars and keep social distance, but they would go through the gay districts or, you know, go around town and just honk their horns and wave and encourage the community that way. Yeah. Well, June is coming up, Harvey Milk's birthday. We've arranged for a national pride ride where every chapter, not everyone's on board yet, because, but we have, I think last we counted were 20 chapters, maybe 25, are preparing for a national pride ride where they are on Harvey Milk's birthday, and to honor him and, of course, the community that we serve. And what a message, you know. I'm really excited about that. We just sent out the press release for that, and we've sent Pride Ride packages to the chapter leaders. Yeah. And I can't wait to see that.
It must just, like, get overwhelming with, like, just, you know, you hear so many stories, right? I mean, they're always going to be the bad stories. That's how they turn into good stories. But, you know, just hearing from somebody that you've never heard of, never seen before, and you get that email, you get a message and say, something you've done has changed my life, right? Like that's big. That's not just, you know, not many people get that, you know, get that from people. And, you know, you've got a long mission to go. And, you know, like you said, not like you said, but the work's not all done yet. There's a lot of people out there that still need this, and, you know, you're moving in the right direction.
Yeah. Well, thank you. I do. I heard once that for each person that will, you know, contact you and say something positive or even negative for that matter, that there's at least 10 other people who feel the same way. They're just not taking the initiative to say something or connect with you to let you know. Yeah. And so I do believe that, but the challenges or, you know, those things, the hard stories are at the forefront of our minds with everything that we do. I can't get that young man who had to spend time in the basement. I can't get that out of my mind. You can't. Yeah. You know, I will never forget that. Or even what I put my own son through. It pales in comparison, but it was damaging just the same. And it took a long time for him. And there's still things that we're working through, no doubt. But it is nice to see celebration, and that's the mission of Free Mom Hugs, is to empower the world to celebrate this community through education, through visibility and conversation. And so by educating, we're sharing resources, we're sharing our story, we're, you know, Moms 1.0 and 2.0. And visibility, a pride ride. And that was inspired by another chapter leader. You know, and so we inspire each other, even with the care packages. It wasn't just my idea. And just like the banquets, I hope that will be a national thing too. Oh, it's amazing. I really appreciate you coming down and sharing some stories. This is like, and you know, you mentioned doing a lot of stuff over Zoom, and I'm so glad we get to do this in person. I know, this is like my first outing. Yeah, you know, I'm honored to have you on, and thanks to Eric as well for putting us together. For people listening, if there's anybody listening that has questions, they may be a parent or they may be, I mean, anything that relates to what we've talked about today, what's the best way for them to reach out? Well, we have resources, and everything about our organization is found at freemomhugs.org. We have chapters in every state. If you just check Free Mom Hugs, whatever state you're in. If you like that chapter, that will keep you in the loop of everything happening locally, and you can just get plugged in there. If I say this all the time, but if you can show up, show up. If you can pray for us, then do that. But if you can give financially, give financially. I mean, we are a nonprofit. It's the time of COVID. We're ramping back up. We need funding. We don't have scholarships, and people who can give are glad to. And so we need that funding to equip our chapters even.
Awesome.
And lastly, if you're a parent with a child, I want you to know that you're not alone, and it doesn't have to be a difficult time. This child in your home expressing themselves is a dynamic to your family that is beautiful, and find a way to celebrate them. We have also a private online Facebook group that we partner with, and it's a private online Facebook group for moms with gay kids. When I joined the group, there were 250 moms. Now there's like 25,000, and guess what? They're making changes where they live. And that group was a wellspring of support and resources. And last thing, and I swear I'll shut up, is that in that group,
totally fine.
I remember, and again, I was like the 250th mom to be added in there, and I thought I was alone. And I remember a mom coming into that group, and she says, my kid just came out to me, and I feel like I don't even know how to pray anymore. I don't even know how to breathe. And you know how a thread will blow up and go viral? Well, that was like that. And all the moms said, then you don't breathe and you don't pray, and let us do that for you right now. I mean, they probably didn't tell her not to breathe, but you get the idea.
For sure.
And we have that resource. It's a Serendipity Doodah for moms, and that's a private group for moms with gay kids, and it's a wellspring, and it will save your family.
Yeah, it's amazing the great things that technology can do, right?
Oh,
I mean,
I
you always
can't
realize
imagine
the bad things that it does and whatever, but you hear stories like that of a group and the meaning that one person can get from that, coming in thinking that they're alone in their town, they're alone, and then they're into this group, and they meet, I think you said now 25,000 mums who've gone through the same thing.
Yeah.
That's powerful.
Yeah. I love the power of social media, obviously.
Right. It's and
it's been good to me.
Yeah, and hopefully it continues to go viral, and we get more impact and more acceptance, and it just grows and grows and grows, because like I said, there are people out there that need this help.
Well, thank you, Mike. I'm glad we're in Oklahoma together. I'm glad to be on this side of the story with you, and I'm just impressed with what you're doing.
Thank you.
Just shining the spotlight on what's happening in Oklahoma.
I love doing it. It's a lot of fun.
It's a great state. It really is. It has a lot of wonderful things going on, so I'm glad to be a part of it.
Thank you so much. For everyone listening, I'll post the links to all of Sarah's social media stuff down below, the website, everything else. And if you feel the need or would love to reach out, donate, please. It's a huge important thing, and the impact that you will have will not go unnoticed. So thanks for listening. We'll catch you next episode. Cheers. This podcast is presented by the Oklahoma Hall of Fame, telling Oklahoma story through its people since 1927. For more information on the Hall of Fame, go to www.oklahomahof.com and follow them on Instagram for daily updates at OklahomaHOF. Also, huge shout out to RCB Bank for jumping on board to be a sponsor. RCB Bank's loan promotion is here for a limited time. Head into any of their 40 Oklahoma locations to get as low as 1.79 APR on your next car, boat, camper, or ATV. Apply online at rcbbank.com. RCB Bank, that's my bank. Rate and finance with approved credit. Restrictions apply, and member FDIC. Huge shout out to my sponsors. Thank you for listening. We'll catch you next episode. Cheers.
Thank you for listening. We are inspired by those around us and hope that you are too. Make sure you subscribe to this podcast on your favorite podcast platform and leave us a review so we can keep telling your stories. For more great Oklahoma content, follow This Is Oklahoma on Facebook and Instagram.